Good day, everyone! Today, we delve into our fourth topic this midterm entitled The Southeast Asian Pros from the Philippines, China, India, and Japan. Our learning objectives: at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to first, differentiate the literature of the Philippines, China, India, and Japan. The second one is recognize the writer in the Philippines, China, India, and Japan. And the third one is explain the similarities and differences of the Southeast Asian literature. Now, let's identify what is prose. In writing, prose refers to any written work that follows a basic grammatical structure. Think words and phrases arranged into sentences and paragraphs. So this stands out from works of poetry, which follow a metrical structure. Thick lines and stanzas. Prose simply means that language that follows the natural patterns found in everyday speech. So when we talk about prose, we are talking about the language of the heart and the everyday person. Unlike poetry, which follows strict meters and rhymes, prose follows the natural patterns of our speech. The beauty of the prose is honesty and accessibility. It teaches us that you don't need to be fancy or perfect to be powerful, because writers like Bob Ong and Luwalhati Bautista use prose because they wanted to speak to us, not above us. Prose is a reminder that your everyday voice is enough to tell a world-changing story. It tells us that even in our simplest sentences and our most basic truths, there is a greatness. Let's proceed to our Philippine literature. Bullet number 1. Philippine literature is a literature associated with the Philippines, from prehistory through its colonial legacy and on the present. What is the meaning of this? So Philippine literature is the ultimate proof of our resilience, showing that through every era, from ancient epics through colonial struggles, the Filipino voice has never been silenced. It teaches us that we are the part of a 1,000-year-old legacy of storytelling, where every word written is a weapon against forgetting and a tool for national pride. So the bullet number 2, pre-Hispanic Philippine literature was actually epics passed on from generation to generation through an oral tradition. So it means that these epics teach us that your voice is your greatest inheritance, because our ancestors didn't need paper to keep our culture alive. They only needed their hearts and memories. It is an inspiring reminder that even without formal tools, the Filipino spirit is powerful enough to create legends that outlast time itself. You carry the DNA of these ancient heroes within you. So never be afraid to share your own story with the world. Bullet number 3. It says here that literacy is for all Filipinos. It's a kind of valuable remedy that helps people plan their own lives, to meet their problems, and to understand the spirit of human nature. So it means that literacy is more than just reading and writing. It is your personal superpower and the ultimate remedy for life's uncertainties. It gives you the clarity to plan for your future and the wisdom to understand the people around you, proving that the knowledge that we have is the greatest equalizer in our society. Remember that when you choose to learn and grow, you aren't just improving yourself. You are helping to heal and strengthen the spirit of the entire Filipino here in the Philippines. Bullet number 4. Studying and having a curriculum in the Philippine literature is a big and important part of. Because I believe that studying our own literature is an act of self-love and national pride. Because I believe that it proves that our stories are just as world-class and valuable as any other. It is an inspiring reminder that you belong to a lineage of thinkers and heroes, and by learning their works, their stories that they do, is you are training your own voice to be as an impactful. Because this curriculum isn't just about reading books, it's about discovering the power within you to write the next great chapter of our nation's history. Let's recognize some notable Filipino writers here in the Philippines. First is we have our national hero, Jose Rizal. From an early age, Jose Rizal demonstrated exceptional intellect, learning the alphabet at 3 and writing by 5 under his mother's guidance. Upon entering the Ateneo, he simplified his name to Jose Protasio Rizal to disassociate himself from the Gomburza priest, executed for treason, and his brother Pasiano, who was under surveillance for his link to them. So it means that si Jose Rizal ay hindi lang pinanganak na matalino. He was a prodigy who valued education from the start. Pero ang pinaka-inspiring dito is his sacrifice for a bigger picture. Pinili niyang baguhin ang pangalan niya, his very identity, para lang makapag-aral sa iba't ibang bansa at ituloy ang laban para sa atin. He had to distance himself from the Gomburza not because he was a coward, but because he needed to survive to be our voice. It teaches us that sometimes you have to make personal sacrifices and change your strategy to reach your goal. Because Rizal's life is a reminder that your name doesn't define you, but your action and your love for the country who really matter. So there are two most remarkable pieces of Rizal. The first one is the Noli Me Tangere or Touch Me Not, and the second one is the El Filibusterismo or the Reign of Greed. Noli Me Tangere or Touch Me Not, my insight for this novel of Rizal is this is a diagnosis of the Philippine society under the Spanish rule because it exposes the corruption of the freers and the colonial government. And I believe that this novel is important because it serves as the awakening of Filipino nationalism. Rizal showed us that we cannot cure a social cancer if we are too afraid to touch or talk about it. And the inspirational line for this is, kailangan mong harapin ang katotohanan, gaano man ito kasakit, para makamit ang tunay na pagbabago. So, the second notable work of Rizal is the El Filibusterismo. Just like I said earlier, in translation in English, it is the Reign of Greed. So, my insight for this is, if Noli was about hope and soft reforms, Fili is about anger and dangers of a failed revolution because it explores what happens when a society is pushed to its limits. I believe that this El Filibusterismo is important because it warns us that revenge and violence alone cannot build a nation because true freedom requires a moral foundation and education. And the inspirational quote for this is, ang galit ay pwedeng maging mitsa ng pagbabago, pero ang pag-ibig sa ating bayan at talino ang dapat na ating ipakalat sa bawat isa. Second Filipino writers is Bob Ong, is the pseudonym of an anonymous Filipino contemporary author known for using conversational Filipino to create humorous and reflective depictions of life as a Filipino. So, a Filipino literacy critic once commented that Filipinos really patronize Bob Ong because while most of his book may have an element of comedy in them, it means that Bob Ong is about authenticity and humility. Kahit hindi natin alam ang kanyang totoong mukha, kilala naman natin ang kanyang puso through his books. Bob Ong proves that you don't need a fancy name or PhD in literature to change lives. Dahil ginamit niya ang kanyang Taglish sa simpleng pananalita para intindihin ang problema ng lipunan. It teaches us that your voice matters, no matter how simple it is. Because Bob Ong shows us that being totoong tao is the best way to connect with others and leave a lasting legacy. One of the most remarkable piece of Bob Ong is ang paboritong libro ni Judas. So my insight with this is using the seven deadly sins as a framework. Bob Ong critiques the hypocrisy of modern Filipinos from politics and daily habits. This books is important because it challenged the readers to self-reflect. It's a mirror that asks, are you part of the problem or the solution? At ang inspirational quote for this is, bago natin punahin ang mali sa gobyerno o sa ibang tao, tignan muna natin ang sarili natin sa mga salamin. So second notable work of Bob Ong is Alamat ng Gubat. So my insight with this is a political allegory disguised as a children's book. The animal in the forest represents different types of people in Philippine society. The greedy leaders, the blind followers, and the etc. So it's important because it simplifies complex political issues, making them relatable to everyone. It teaches us about the crab mentality and the need for genuine leadership. Third is Francisco Balagtas. Francisco Balagtas refined his craft under the mentorship of Jose de la Cruz, known as Joseng Sisiw, whom he originally paid in chicks for poetry lessons. Driven by a challenge from his mentor, Balagtas vowed to surpass him by offering his art freely without transactional demands. So Balagtas is about grit and the price of passion. Nagsimula siya sa chicks bilang bayad sa lesson, but he ended up becoming the king of Tagalog poets. So his vow to not ask for anything in return shows a heart for service, na ang sining ay hindi lang para pagkakitaan, kundi para ibigay sa ating mga tao. Though he warned his children against writing because of his suffering it brought him, we can see it differently today. Because he suffered so that our language could be respected, because his life teaches us that great things often comes from great pain, and the legacy you leave behind can be the voice of a whole nation. So one of the most remarkable piece of Jose Rizal is the Florante at Laura. So my insight for this is, set in a fictional kingdom, this awit or poem is actually coded protest against Spanish oppression, because it discusses themes of love, betrayals, and justice. It's important because it's the cornerstone of Tagalog literature. It proves that our local language is capable of the highest form of poetic expression and philosophical thought. So the inspirational quote for this is, kahit nakagapos ka sa puno ng higera o nakakulong sa hirap, ang iyong kaisipan at panulat ay mananatiling malaya. The fourth one is the Epsionil Jose. He attended the University of Santo Tomas but eventually dropped out to pursue a prolific career in journalism and literature. He became a champion for the Philippine writer by founding the Philippine branch of PEN and establishing his own publishing house. The story of Epsionil Jose is about grit and conviction. He was a college dropout, but he didn't let that stop him from becoming a national artist. He proves that success is not defined by a diploma, but by your dedication to your craft and your country. Katulad ni Rizal, ginamit niya ang kanyang panulat para ipaglaban ang mga karaniwang tao o ang mga mahihirap. He reminds us that it's okay to be underrated or criticized by the elite as long as you are speaking the truth. His life teaches us to be proud of our authentic voice that we have and to use it for a benefit of those who have less in life. He has so many remarkable pieces. One of these is the Puon or Source in 1984. My insight with this is the beginning of the saga. It follows the Samson family as they flee Spanish tyranny. It's a story of migration, survival, and the search for a place to call home. It is important for me because it highlights the root of Filipino resilience. It shows that our fight for our land and dignity started long before the modern era. The inspirational quote for this is, "Life will throw you out of your comfort zone, but your roots and your family's honor will keep you standing." It reminds us to be never forget where we came from. His second remarkable work is The Thief, year 1978. My insight with this was told through the eyes of a son of a wealthy landowner. This story explores the shade and shadows of the feudal system in the Philippines. And I believe it is important because it exposes the gap between the rich and the poor. And even if you are on top like a tree, you're still part of a broken system that causes suffering those below. So the inspirational quote for this is, "Empathy is a choice, even if you are born within a silver spoon. You have the power to see the injustice around you and choose to be better." The Pretenders. This is the most popular novel in the series because it follows Antonio Samson, a brilliant man from poor background who marries into a wealthy, corrupt family and eventually loses his soul to their lifestyle. Its importance because it serves as a warning against selling out. It critiques the elite society that pretends to be noble but is actually rotten and manipulative. So its inspirational quote was, "Success is an empty if you lose your integrity along the way. Don't let the world change your inner gold into something fake just to fit in." The next one is My Brother, My Executioner, year 1973. So this is a heavy drama about two brothers. One is radical revolutionary or the rebel, and the other one is a wealthy editor. They represent the internal conflict of a nation divided by social class. It importance because it portrays the pain of civil unrest. It asks the difficult question, is blood thicker than belief? It shows how ideologies can tear families apart, and its inspirational quote was, "True conviction requires sacrifices. Sometimes the hardest battle is not against an enemy, but against the people we are love who stand on the wrong side of justice." The next one is The Mask, year 1974. The final book of the saga, it follows Pepe Samson, the illegitimate son of Antonio from the Pretenders, as he finds his purpose not in wealth but in joining the movement for the masses in the slums of Tondo. So, importance of this work was it represents redemption of the political awakening. It shows that the next generation has the chance to correct the mistakes of their fathers by serving the people. And its inspirational quote is, "You are not defined by your father's failures because you can choose to rise, join the masses, and be the spark that finally brings about the change for the country has been waiting for." The fifth one is Luwalhati Bautista. Born in Tondo, Manila, rose in literary prominence despite graduating at the bottom of her high school, eventually dropping out of college due to failed grades. Lacking formal training, she began her career in Liwayway magazine and became celebrated for her honest realism and courageous exploration of Philippines' women's issues. Luwalhati Bautista, ang ultimate definition ng grit over grades. She was the lowest in her class and even dropped out of college. Pero tignan nyo, naging isa siya sa pinaka-importanting boses sa kasaysayan natin. She proves that your academic failures do not define your future potential because ginawa niyang sandata ang kanyang honest realism para ipaglaban ang karapatan ng mga kababaihan. Her life teaches us that you don't need a diploma to be a genius. You just need the courage to tell the truth. Because she inspires us to be the matapang and totoo kahit sa gitna ng mahirap na sitwasyon. She has so many remarkable pieces, but some of the remarkable pieces that she have is Bulaklak ng City Jail. My insight with this story is it dives into the lives of women behind bars. It shows that many criminals are actually victims of poverty, abuse, and the failed of justice system. It importance because it humanizes prisoners. It tells us that women in jails are still humans with stories, with dreams, and with rights. It exposes the harsh reality of the Philippine penal system. And my inspirational quote for this is, even in the darkest cage of life, the human spirit can still find a way to bloom because it teaches us to judge people based on their situation but on their humanity. The second one is the Dekada 70. My insight with this is set during the martial law era. It follows Amanda Bartolome, a mother of 5 sons. She transitions from a silent housewife to a politically aware woman. In importance because it is a historical wake-up call for us because it shows that politics is not just for politicians. It affects every family, every mother, and every child because it captures the struggle of democracy through the eyes of parents. And my inspirational quote for this is, your silence is not your peace. Your voice is your power because it inspires us to stand up for the truth even when it's scary for the sake of the next generation. The fourth one is Dagapo. It's set in Olongapo during the time of the U.S. Naval Base. It tackles the identity crisis of the Satos, Americans' children, the neocolonialism or the indirect control of America over the Philippines. For me, it's important because it highlights the struggles for identity and sovereignty. It shows that the ugly side of the American dream and how it exploited the poor and the marginalized in our own backyard. And my inspirational quote for this is, dignity is not yours, it's not for sale. It reminds us to be proud of our heritage and to never let outsiders dictate your value as a people. His fifth notable work entitled 60 in the City. This explores the lives of the 3 women in their 60s, Guaya, Rhoda, and Lola, as they navigate aging, friendship, and the realization of life doesn't end at retirement. It importance because it gives a voice to the elderly. Usually stories are about the youth. By Luwalhati proves that senior citizens still have passions, heartaches, and a lot of life left to live. My inspirational quote for this is, age is just a number, right? Growth is forever. It inspires us to keep dreaming and reinventing ourselves no matter how old we are. Sixth is In Sisterhood. This is a collection anthology that reinforces the bond between women. It focuses on collective strength rather than individual struggle. It importance because it promotes sorority or woman solidarity. It teaches that women are stronger when they support each other instead of competing against one another. So my inspirational message quote for this is, empowered woman, empower woman. It's a call for us to be the sisters to those who are struggling and to build a community where everyone is lifted up.
Next is Nicomedes Marquez Joaquin. Joaquin was a Filipino writer, historian, and journalist, best known for his short stories and novels in the English language. He also wrote using the pen name Quijano de Manila. Joaquin was conferred the rank and title of National Artist of the Philippines for Literature. He is considered one of the most important Filipino writers in English and the third most important overall after Jose Rizal and Claro M. Recto. Most remarkable pieces of Joaquin is first, My Day Eve, 1947. It tells the story of Don Badoy and Agueda, whose passionate but ultimately unhappy marriage began with a May Day Eve ritual. Agueda sees Badoy in a mirror, believing him to be her future husband, but their fairy love turns to resentment over time. The story explores how youthful passion can fade, leading to disillusionment and regret in marriage. It also examined the impact of folklore and societal expectation on relationship. The second is The Prose and Poems, 1952. Is a collection showcase his unique style. It features short stories, poems, and his play, a portrait of the artist as Filipino. His work often explore Philippine history and culture, blending myth with reality to examine the tension between tradition and modernity, and advocating for a revival of national consciousness through literature. The third is The Woman Who Had Two Novels, 1961. It is about Connie Escobar, a Filipina woman who believes she has two novels, symbolizing her fractured identity due to her mother's affair with her husband. Seeking to escape this reality, she travels to Hong Kong. The novel delves into themes of post-colonial identity, family betrayal, and the blurred lines between illusion and reality. The fourth one is the La Novelle de Manila and Other Essay, 1964. It focuses on the historical novels battles of 1646, where Filipinos and Spaniards, with the help of the Virgin Mary, repelled Dutch invaders. The collection also explores broader themes of Philippine history, culture, and identity, emphasizing the influence of Spanish colonial heritage and folk Catholicism on the nation. And the last one is a portrait of the artist as Filipino. The 1966. It is a play about the Marasigan family in pre-World War II Manila. It centers on the conflict between the traditional father, a painter, and his children, particularly his daughters, who represent the clash between old Filipino values and encroaching Western modernity. The play explores themes of national identity, artistic integrity, and the struggle to preserve cultural heritage in a changing world. Hilda Olvidado from Cebu City. She is a Filipino movie and television writer and melodrama novelist. Her novels have been turned into live-action movies by Viva Films and also been remade for television through Cinenovela. Olvidado had contributed greatly in entertainment industry through her novel-turned movies. She had kept us well entertained by making absolute pieces. Most remarkable pieces is first, Huwag Mo Kaming Isumpak, 1981. It features short stories that explore human suffering, resilience, complex family dynamics, and social issues in the Philippines, often with a melancholic yet powerful tone. The next is the Sinasamba Kita, 1982. Originally a graphic novel, revolves around the intense rivalry between two half-sisters, Divina and Nora. Divina is the legitimate daughter, treats Nora, her brother's illegitimate child, with disdain. Despite this, Nora initially adores Divina. The story follows their complex relationship, marked by harsh treatment, enduring devotion, and a cloverleaf love chain involving men, ultimately leading to a confrontation to settle their past. The last is Kung Mahawi Man ang Lupa, 1984. It tells the story of Catherine, whose seemingly perfect life is disrupted when her father dies and her mother remarries. Her new stepfather and his family came to take away her inheritance, leading to numerous hardships and challenges as she fights to reclaim her life. The narrative explores themes of betrayal, resilience, and the struggle against injustice. Next writer is Dr. Louis Mar Gangcuangco. Is an HIV researcher, best-selling novelist, and one of the youngest licensed physicians from the Philippines. He is the author of the multi-awarded Filipino novel Oro sa Nakfil Malate and is currently working as a clinical research associate for the Hawaii Center for AIDS. He made a novel mainly about erotica but gave lesson and reflected on what's happening in our generation. His most remarkable pieces is The Oras Nakfil Malate, year 2006, is a novel about love, revenge, and sex in Manila's gay community. It follows Dave, a medical student, and incorporates factual information about HIV or AIDS prevention within a story of relationship, friendship, and rivalry. Next writer is Mars Rabelo, was a Filipino graphic novelist who created the characters Darna, Jezabel, Captain Barbell, Plastic Man, Bonjing, Barga, Wanted Perfect Mother, Hiwaga, Maruha, Mariposa, Roberta Rita, Buhay Pilipino, Jack and Jill, Flash Bomba, Tiny Tony, and etc. Mars Rabelo had greatly contributed countless literary pieces, mainly in entertainment industry. He helped mold our imagination and even told the Filipino youth, be what you want to be, make your imagination as the source of your success. His most remarkable pieces is, unang-una na dito, is yung Darna, year 1950. Is about an ordinary girl named Narda, transformed into the powerful warrior. Darna was swallowing a magical stone. She fights evil, especially her archenemy Valentina, with her superhuman abilities, becoming a symbol of hope and strength for the Philippines. The second is Jezabel, year 1952. Jezabel is a popular mermaid character in the Philippines. She is unique because she is the only mermaid born to human parents, shunned by superstitious people due to her physical form. Jezabel's story revolves around her adventures in the sea and her interactions with humans. A sea witch named Yanga gives her the ability to breathe underwater. Jezabel later falls in love with a human and Yanga turns her into a human. Last is Plastic Man, year 1954. Plastic Man is a Filipino superhero known for his superhuman elasticity and shape-shifting abilities. Inspired by characters like DC Comics, Plastic Man, and Marvel's Mr. Fantastic. Plastic Man can stretch, contort, and transform his body into virtually any imaginable shape or form. Magno Carlo Jose Caparas, widely known as Carlo J. Caparas, is a Filipino comic strip creator, writer turned director, and producer, who is best known for creating such Filipino superheroes and comic books characters as Panday, Bakekang, Totoy Bato, Joaquin Bordado, Magaong, Elias, Panike, Tasha Pantasya, Gagambino, Pieta, and ang babaeng hinugot sa aking tadyang, among others. He is also known as director of numerous massacres movies such as Kuratong Baleleng, The Cory Quirino Kidnap, and BI Files. Caparas was awarded the 2008 Sagisag Balagtas Award. His contribution to Philippines history and entertainment industry are beyond compare. He has contributed numerous literary works that both smiles and brought about lessons that we can use and apply in real-life situation. He took a large step in molding Philippines history that will ever remain in every Filipino's heart. Ang kanyang most remarkable pieces naman is Panday, year 1970s, is a Filipino blacksmith hero. He fights evil with a magical sword and is a symbol of Filipino resilience, famously brought to life by Fernando Fo Jr. in films starting in 1980. The second is Kamandag. First appeared in 1984. He is a half-human, half-snake creature with super strength and shape-shifting abilities. The characters fight evils and was notably adapted into a TV series in 2007. And the last is Bakekang, is a Philippine drama series that premiered in 2006 based on a graphic novel. It tells the story of Jacoba Bakekang Mais og a woman ostracized for her looks who thrives for love and acceptance and her journey as a mother. The series explored themes of beauty, ambitions, and discrimination.
Hello everyone, punta naman tayo sa prose literature ng China, and to start that, Chinese literature is one of the major literary heritage of the world with an uninterrupted history of more than 3,000 years. Dating back to the 14th century BCE and approximately 3,320 to 3,420 years ago. And nag-started to noong first dynasty nila, which is the Xia dynasty. Through cultural context, Chinese literature has profoundly influenced the literary tradition of other Asian countries, particularly Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. Not only was the Chinese script adapted for the written language in these countries, but some writers adopted Chinese language as the literary medium at least before the 20th century. The graphical and tonal nature of Chinese language has profoundly shaped its literature, fostering a visual aesthetic but elevated calligraphy to fine arts while creating a unique unified culture across diverse spoken dialects. Furthermore, this system, characterized by high density, tonal, and often concise expression, has blurred the lines between poetry and prose, fostering unique genres and a strong, long-standing bond between poetry and music. Now, punta naman tayo sa prose. Ang prose ng literary prose ng China, merong 5, which is meron toong 2 primary streams and 3 hybrid or specialized genres. Itong una ay ang classical or literary prose, or sa language nila ay ang Guen or Wenyan. Ito ay isa sa 2 primary streams. This style is modeled after the ancient Confucian classics and early philosophers. It is far removed from the spoken language and was the standard for the Imperial Civil Service examination. Itong Guen or Wenyan ay hindi nila ito ginagamit for their daily language or daily life na language, and nung una, oo, ginagamit nila, pero hanggang sa pagdating ng panahon, pagtagal ng patagal, is ginagamit na lang ito sa mga examination, lalo na siya tawag lang Imperial Service Examination. Ang best writer naman ng Wenyan ay si Han Yun noong 768 to 824 BCE. As a monumental figure in the Chinese literary, widely regarded as one of the greatest masters of Wenyan prose in the Tang Dynasty. He was a pivotal figure in the classical prose movement or Guanyan Dong, which sought to abandon the restrictive, highly ornamental parallel prose or Pianwen in favor of the clear, concise, and argumentative style of the pre-Qin and Han dynasties. And yung best work is yung Teacher's Discourse or Shisho. This is one of his most famous essays. In it, he strongly defends the role of the teacher as someone who imparts the way, teaches the profession, and resolves doubts. It was written to criticize the lack of respect for education and teachers in his society, establishing a classic defense of the academic tradition. Pangalawa naman, isa rin sa primary stream, ang Baihua or plain speech. Is written in vernacular Chinese style based on Mandarin, which replaced classical Chinese or Wenyan as a standard literary language following the 1917 New Literature movement. It promotes accessibility and modern expression over traditional, rigid forms, enabling widespread literacy and modernizing Chinese literature. Its origin can be dated back to 13th century. Kung mapag-aaralan nyo is noong 1911 is nagkaroon ng Chinese Revolution, and 1912 is pinatanggal na ng mga Chinese ang kanilang last emperor na si Puyin at yung end mismo ng Chinese dynasty or the Qin dynasty. And this time naman po is ang gusto kasi nila is mapa-widespread mismo yung literacy ng Chinese language. Kaya naman, ito yung Baihua is yung ginamit nila or yung plain speech, ginamit nila ito para mas padali at mas madaling maintindihan ng mga Chinese ang Chinese language. And binasa nila ito sa Mandarin kasi parang Tagalog ito sa kanila. And yung best known writer naman nito is si Lucian noong 1881 hanggang 1936. Considered the father of the modern Chinese literature and pioneering Baihua writer. His story, A Madman's Diary, 1918, is often cited as the first modern story written in the vernacular, and the true story of a Q is a seminal Baihua work. A Madman's Diary naman is a landmark work of modern Chinese literature that uses a madman's paranoid diary entries to expose the cannibalistic nature of traditional Chinese feudal society and Confucian ethics. It critiques how ancient cultural norms, family systems, and the Confucian benevolence actually devour human spirit and individuality, arguing that feudal society is a man-eating system. So kung matatandaan nyo, sinabi ko kanina is noong 1912 is pinatanggal nila ang kanilang dynasty, pero hindi ibig sabihin nito is naging isang country na sila noon. Noong 1918 na panahon na yan is yung Beijing government or yung PRC or yung People's Republic of China, PRC, is mahina pa yung government na yon. Kaya naman yung namumuno sa panahon na yan is like puro warlords or generals. Wala pa silang one country noon. Hati-hati pa ang China noon. And pangatlong prose and isa sa sa tatlong hybrid or specialized genres, ang Fu. Originating in the Han Dynasty, the Fu is often called in English as rhapsody or rhyme prose or poetical essay. It is a literary form that sits between poetic and prose, utilizing the vivid imagery of poetry within a structured prose framework. The best well-known writer naman ng Fu ay si Sima Xiangru. Noong 179 to 117 BC, was a prominent Western Han Dynasty poet, musician, and politician renowned as the greatest master of the Fu rhapsody genre. He famously blended intricate prose with rhythmic verse to create extravagant descriptive works celebrating imperial grandeur. His masterpiece, including Zi Shivu and Xianglin Fu, defined the ornate panoramic style of Han literature. Now, ang Zixi Fu or Surf Fantasy or Rhapsody on Surf Fantasy is a Han Dynasty prose poem written in a question and answer format exploring the grandeur of ancient Chinese state through a fictitious debate. It highlights the luxurious hunting activities of Qi, Chu, and the Son of Heaven, aiming to praise the emperor's supreme power and criticize excessive extravagance through indirect admonition. Yung Son of Heaven dito is ito yung yung emperor. Si Qi and Chu naman is yung kaibigan mismo na emperor. Pang-apat naman, hybrid and special genres ulit, Pianwen or parallel prose. Is a classical Chinese literary style flourishing from the 6th dynasty to the Tang dynasty. Characterized by strict antithesis, 4 or 6 character lines, balanced tones, and ornate imagery. Like paired horse, it couples match words and structure, creating a highly decorative rhythmic prose. The best well-known writer naman nito ay si Shilling noong 507 hanggang 583 CE. Ang kanyang courtesy name or yung pen name niya is name is Xiaomu. Was a renowned Chinese writer, scholar, and official of the Liang and Chen dynasty during the Southern Dynasties period 420 to 589 CE. He is best known as master of Pianwen, parallel prose, and for compiling the new song from the Jade Terrace o Yutai Xianyong. Ang Yutai Xianyong or Song from a Jade Terrace compiled by Xianyong under the patronage of Crown Prince Xianggong during the Liang Dynasty is a landmark anthology of Chinese poetry that primarily focuses on love, feminine beauty, and the lives of women in the palace. It is considered a seminal collection of the palace-style poetry or Gong Ti Shi. Ngayon, ito namang Yutai Xianyong is humiiwala ito sa turo mismo ng ni Confucius or yung Confucian Analect, the Confucian philosophy. Ngayon, ang panghuli sa hybrid specialized genres, the Bagwen or 8-legged essay. It is a highly regulated rigid essay format required in Chinese Imperial Civil Service examinations during the Ming and Qing dynasties no 1383 hanggang 1911. Yung sinabi ko noon do sa revolution mismo, ang last dynasty nila is ang Qing dynasty. It structured arguments into 8 distinct sections based on Confucian classics, focusing on strict balances and antithesis, which while testing technical writing skills often stifled creativity and intellectual innovation. Yan nga kung bakit sinabi ko kanina ang Baiwen or Baihua rather, yung pinalit nila sa mga ganito dahil nga dito nakasabi na nga rito yung staple the creativity and intellectual innovations of everyone. So ayan na, yung parts naman netong ng Baguen, meron siyang 8 legs. Doon na nga sa pangalan, and bawat legs is may meaning. The first is initial leg and the extended leg. Several paired phrases beginning with a discussion of the topic. The middle legs score up the discussion in paired sentences. Later legs extension of the main argument in paired sentences. Length depending on that of the previous one. Closing legs, the review and conclusion of the discussion in paired phrases. Conclusion. Prose or paired sentences use of for your own opinion aloud. And then yung Pinakasikat na writer naman nito ay si Wang Ao noong 1450 hanggang 1524 CE. Was a prominent Ming Dynasty politician, essayist, and scholar, widely considered a master of Baguwen or eight-legged essay form. As a leading literary figure of his time, he played a key role in the promotion and refinement of his highly structured rigid prose style used in imperial examination. And yung gawa niya mismo na mga essay is yun yung kadalasan na ginagamit mismo sa mga imperial civil service examination na ginanap noon. And yung best well-known works niya is yung When the People Have Enough, How Can the Ruler Alone Have Too Little? It is based on the Confucian Analects passage. This essay, which became a model for exam candidates, centered on the Confucian philosophy that a ruler's prosperity is directly tied to the welfare of their subjects, arguing that a ruler should prioritize providing a livelihood for the people over maximizing tax revenues. Alam niyo naman noon ang corruption is hindi lang naman yung pangkasalukuyan niya. Dati pang merong corruption. Kaya naman pagdating sa mga civil service, lalo na rito sa civil service examination nila is tinatest mismo ang mga nagtitake ng exam about sa corruptions.
The earliest Indian literature took the form of the canonical Hindu sacred writings, known as the Veda, which were written in Sanskrit. To the Veda were added prose commentaries such as the Brahmanas and the Upanishads. The production of Sanskrit literature extended from about 1500 BCE to about 1000 CE and reached its height of development in the 1st to 7th centuries CE. In addition to the sacred and philosophical writing, such genres as erotic and devotional lyrics, court poetry, plays, and narrative vaudeville emerged. Because Sanskrit was identified with the Brahmanical religion of the Vedas, Buddhism and Jainism adopted other literacy language. From this and other related language emerged the modern language of northern India. The literature of those languages depends largely on the ancient Indian background, which include two Sanskrit epic poems, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, as well as the Bhagavata Purana and the other Puranas. In addition, the Sanskrit philosophies were the source of philosophical writing in the later literature, and the Sanskrit school of rhetoric were of a great importance for the development of court poetry in many of the modern literatures. The South Indian language of Tamil is an exception to this poet pattern of Sanskrit, influenced because it has a classical tradition of its own. Urdu and Sindhi are other exceptions. In the beginning, in the 19th century, particularly during the height of British control over the subcontinent, Western literacy models had an impact on Indian literature, the most striking results being the introduction of the use of vernacular prose on major scale. Such form as the novels and short story began to be adopted by Indian writers, as did realism and interest in social questions and psychological description. A tradition of literature in English was also established in the subcontinent. Chetan Bhagat, cited by the New York Times in 2008 as the biggest selling English language novelist in Indian history. Chetan Bhagat is author, screenwriter, columnist, and TV personality. He is known for comedy drama, novels about young urban middle class Indians. Some of his famous work includes 5 Point Someone, Two States, Half Girlfriend, and One Indian Girl. Chetan Bhagat mainly focuses his literature and writing in youth culture, middle class, and aspiration. His writing is primarily comedy drama centering on education and career, It focuses on the pressure of competitive exams and engineering, anything that is related to education. It also focuses on modern romance, navigating relationship, and inter-community marriage.
Amrita Pritam. Pritam indulged in poetry and literature at a very young age, which influenced her to become a poet and novelist later in her life. She was a courageous woman who did not fear writing controversial texts during the pre-partition era. She suffered through tough times during the partition of India and influenced her to write the Punjabi novel Pinjar, or in English means skeleton, which describes the helplessness of the women during that era and the discrimination they had to go through. The novel later was made into a Bollywood movie which was a hit throughout the nation. Pritam's work is deeply rooted in the trauma of 1947 partition. Her focus includes female perspective. She was a courageous woman who wrote about the helplessness of women during times of conflict and social discrimination. Her novel Pinjar or Skeleton highlights the specific violence and loss of identity women faced during the division of India and Pakistan. Kushwat Sai. He was a journalist, editor, and novelist born in Hadley during the time of British India. He received his degree at St. Stephen College in New Delhi and King's Collection in London. He initially started his career as a lawyer, after which he got the opportunity to become the editor of important journals and magazines. As an author, he wrote some outstanding novels like Train to Pakistan, published in 1956, Delhi, a novel published in 1990, The Company of Women, published in 1999, Truth, Love, and a Little Malice, published in 2002, The God, the Bad, and the Ridiculous, published in 2013. As a journalist and novelist, Sai focused on the stark realities of Indian history and society. His themes includes historical realism. Train to Pakistan is a definitive look of the brutal human cause of the partition and the human nature. His later works often explore truth, love, and malice, using a blend of sharp wit, satire, and honest social commentary.
Jhumpa Lahiri. Lahiri is well known for her novels, essay, and short stories. She was born in London but relocated to the United States to get her education from Barnard College. She was ahead of her master's and attained her degree from Boston University. She was a struggling writer, and her work was initially rejected by the publishers until her biggest success, which is The Interpreter of Maladies. This was a compilation of all her stories about the life of immigrant in post-partition in India. After the runaway success, she wrote many other novels which are famous throughout the Indian continent and the world. Some of the famous ones being The Namesake, Unaccustomed, Earth, and The Lowland. Lahiri focuses on the Indian diaspora, specifically those living in the West. Her writing explores cultural identity and the generalization of gaps.
R.K. Narayan. He was born in Chennai and due to his father's transfer had to move around, therefore changed many schools. His interest in reading was evident since a very young age and his hobby soon became a habit. He later graduated and decided to become a stay-at-home writer. His initial books were not that popular until his third novel, The Dark Room. Narayan wrote many novels after this which were published and soon became a well-renowned author during his time in India. Narayan's focus was on the ironies and rhythms of everyday Indian life. His work contents on character studies rather than grand political statement. He focuses on the habit of reading and the lives of ordinary people. Another one is simplicity. He is celebrated for capturing the essence of small town India through a lens of gentle humor and realism.
So, patuloy tayo sa Indian writers. So, ang pang-anim natin is si Rabindranath Tagore. Though technically, yung tamang pagbigkas sa apelyido niya is Tagore lang. So, siya ay nag-aral ng law o batas pero mas interesado siya kay Shakespeare at sa literature. Naging poet at author siya at ang unang kanyang tula na Mansai o Mansai ay na-publish noong 1890. Naging sikat ito sa mambabasa ng Bengali. Ang kanyang makilalang gawa ay ang poetry collection ng Gitanjali at ang Galpagu Chacha na may 80 short story. Next natin si Vikram Seth. Ipinanganak siya sa Calcutta at nag-graduate siya mula sa Corpus Christi College, Oxford noong 1975 with a BA sa Philosophy o Bachelor of Philosophy, Politics and Economics. Pagkatapos nun, nag-aral siya ulit at nakakuha siya ng PhD mula sa Stanford University noong 1986. Pero yung pinakasikat niya na gawa ay ang epic novel na The Suitable Boy. O maraming nagustuhan ito dahil sa lawak ng kwento at mga karakter na napaka-responsible o relatable. So next is isa pa sa mga kilalang Indian writers ay si Ruskin Bond. Pinanganak siya sa Punjab na parte pa noon ng British Indian. Nag-aral siya sa Shimla at pagkatapos ng high school, pumunta siya sa UK para pagbutihin pa ang kanyang pagsusulat. Nagsimula siya bilang freelance writer tapos naging magazine editor siya noong 1980s. Ang kanyang nobela ay nakuha niya malawak na pagpapahalaga. Pero ang pinakasikat niya talagang gawa ay ang The Blue Umbrella. Perfect ito para sa mga bata at matatanda dahil sa magagandang aral na binibigay nito. Hindi naman pwedeng hindi natin mabanggit si Arundhati Roy. Siya ay hindi lang writer, siya rin po ay isang essayist at political activist. Ang kanyang pinakasikat na gawa ay ang The God of Small Things na nanalo pa ng noong 1997 Man Booker Prize for Fiction. So isa yun sa pinakamataas na parangal sa mundo ng mga literature. Meron din siyang ibang gawa tulad ng The Algebra of Infinite Justice, Kashmir, The Case of Freedom, The Capitalism, A Ghost of Story. Talagang may lakas ng boses siya sa mga issue ng lipunan. At ang huli pero hindi mababa, si Sarat Charad Chattopadhyay. Ipinanganak siya sa isang mahirap na pamilya pero inspirasyon niya ang kanyang ama na isang writer din at dreamer. Nagsimula siyang sumulat ng mga kilalang essay noong siya pa ay teenager pa at nagambag siya sa mga magazine. Siya ay isang feminist at tinatalakay niya ang bigotry at pagiging mapanghusga at mga patriarchal norms o mga kaulagian na pabor sa mga lalaki. Sa kanyang mga gawa, ang kanyang mga sikat na akda ay Devdas noong 1970s. Sinulat niya noong 1901. Sunod naman is Pereneta noong 1940 at Viradwao noong 1940 at Pali Samay noong 1960. Marami na rin itong na-adapt sa mga pelikula. At yun na po ang mga kaibigan natin. So, ang ilan sa mga bantog na Indian writers ay nagbigay ng mga gandang kwento at aral sa buong mundo. Alam nyo ba, marami pang ibang Indian writers na pwede nating pag-aralan. So, tanong kayo, tanong ko sa inyo, have you read any of their works before? Or would you want to start with one?
Now let's talk about the Southeast Asian prose of Japan. Japanese literature, the body of written works produced by Japanese authors in Japanese or in its earliest beginnings at a time when Japan had no writing language in the Chinese classical language. So, Japanese literature refers to all the written works made by Japanese writers at first. Japan didn't have its own writing system, so people used classical Chinese to write. Later, they started writing in Japanese instead. China on that time had a huge effect on how Japanese literature got started. Because Japan didn't have writing early on, it began taking in Chinese culture and learning from it during the first 400 years or so. And this shaped how their literature developed. So, here is the Japanese famous writers. The first one is Murakami Haruki. Born on January 12, 1949, he is a prominent Japanese author celebrated for his novels, essays, and short stories, which have gained international acclaim. His works have been translated into 50 languages and sold millions worldwide. Known for surreal storytelling that often explores themes such as cats, lost women, jazz music, and parallel worlds, Murakami's notable titles includes Norwegian's Wood, 1987, The Wind Up Bird Chronicle, 1994 to 1995, and 1Q84, 2009 to 2010. The second Japanese writer, known Kawakami Hirumi. She was born in Tokyo in 1958. She began her career as a biology teacher after graduating from Ochanomizu University, transitioning to writing in the 1990s. A contemporary writer, her works delve into themes of loneliness, relationships, and human connection, establishing her as a notable figure in modern Japanese literature. Kawakami's notable works include Kamisama 2008, Hebe wo Fumu 2017, and Strange Weather in Tokyo 2023. The third one is Mishima Yukio, born January 14, 1925, and was raised by his grandmother from a young age, who exposed him to traditional Japanese culture. He began writing in his school days and published his first short story, Sorrel, in 1938. Mishima's works explore the conflict between tradition and modernity, the relationship between beauty and death, and the explorations of human nature and identity. Famous works he wrote during his time is The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, 1965, The Temple of Dawn, 1973, and Patriotism, 1966. Additional informations about Yukio Mishima is that in his political activities, he was disillusioned with Japan's post-war westernization. He advocated restoring traditional values and the emperor's authority, and he founded the private militia Tatenokai on November 25, 1970. He gathered 4 members and broke into a Tokyo military base, took the commander hostage and tried to incite a coup, which at the end failed and led to his suicide known as seppuku. Next, Yoko Tawada. She is a prominent Japanese-German bilingual writer, acknowledged as a key literary figure in Japan and internationally. Born in Tokyo, she studied Russian literature at Waseda University and moved to Germany in 1982, residing in Hamburg until 2006 before moving to Berlin. With a master's in German literature from the University of Hamburg and a doctorate from the University of Zurich. She started her career in 1987 with a bilingual poetry collection and has published over 20 works in both languages, translated into more than 10 languages. Her notable works include The Bridegroom is a Dog, 1998, The Children of Tokyo, 2014, and Memoirs of a Polar Bears, 2016. The last one of the Japanese writers are the most famous today. His name is Junji Ito, a legendary Japanese horror manga artist from Nakatsugawa, Gifu Prefecture. Significantly influenced the genre and was inspired by Kazuo Umizu and Shinichi Koga in his childhood. His rural upbringing and personal experiences shaped his creations. He began his career as a dental technician and debuted in 1987 with Tommy, which earned an honorable mention in the Kazuo Umizu Prize. He became a full-time artist in 1990, with notable works including the Junji Ito Story Collections and the Art of Junji Ito Twisted Visions.